For 10,000 years, human survival has depended on a straightforward equation: raising an animal and slaughtering it to extract calories. But as populations exploded, traditional agriculture morphed into a hyper-industrialized system. Concentrated feeding operations optimize for rapid growth, yet they demand vast tracts of land and generate massive levels of greenhouse gas emissions. Now, biotechnology is attempting to decouple meat production from the macroscopic animal entirely. The locus of protein cultivation is moving from the open pasture into the sterile environment of an industrial cleanroom. We are answering a radically different question: how to grow authentic, structured muscle tissue without ever breeding a living organism. This graphic maps the modern protein landscape. Cultivated meat, on the right, is authentic animal tissue produced through in vitro cultivation, sharing the traditional pathway's biological profile. The process bypasses the slaughterhouse entirely by isolating primary stem cells from a healthy donor animal. Once cryopreserved in a master bank, a single harmless biopsy possesses the regenerative capacity to seed thousands of metric tons of meat over decades. This chart projects the resource demands of meat production. Notice the drastic reduction in the land use and water use columns for cultivated meat compared to conventional livestock. The biology works efficiently in the pristine environment of a laboratory petri dish, but scaling that process to feed billions of people introduces the unyielding limitations of mass production physics. Inside the bioreactor, fragile animal cells are multiplying rapidly, submerged in a liquid growth medium, an artificial bloodstream providing amino acids, simple sugars, and growth factors. But growing a recognizable cut of meat introduces an architectural dilemma. In a living animal, a vast vascular network pumps oxygen directly to every cell. Without it, cells in the center of a dense, engineered mass quickly starve and face necrosis. To solve this, tissue engineers employ food-grade, edible plant matrices. These scaffolds provide the physical topography needed to instruct the growth. They force the differentiating myoblasts to physically align, elongate, and fuse together into mature muscle fibers, rather than clustering in disorganized clumps. Recreating the mechanical bite of a whole steak requires mastering an incredibly complex food engineering pipeline. Moving to commercial scale introduces nonlinear hydrodynamics. Massive tanks require spinning impellers to distribute oxygen, but rotating them too fast creates physical shear forces that shred the delicate animal cells. Simultaneously, millions of densely packed cells continuously excrete metabolic waste. If toxic byproducts like ammonia aren't actively stripped from the liquid, they trigger catastrophic batch failure. Managing these delicate parameters inside towering 20,000-liter vessels requires immense, continuous electrical inputs for mechanical agitation, for strict sterilization, and thermal regulation. This chart highlights the specific energy demand of the cultivation process. If these massive industrial facilities are built on electrical grids reliant on fossil fuels, their overall greenhouse gas footprint could exceed that of conventional poultry farming. Cultivated meat is not an isolated climate solution. Its environmental viability relies entirely on global decarbonization. Leaving the Research Institute requires astronomical capital expenditures. Scaling up demands miles of complex aseptic piping, continuous automated sensors, and specialized stainless steel infrastructure. The industry faces the financial peril of taking a high-margin pharmaceutical model and forcing it to function as a low-margin food commodity. The global regulatory landscape is deeply fractured. Jurisdictions like Singapore and the United States have established early regulatory pathways, approving commercial retail sales to accelerate innovation. Conversely, other regions have enacted aggressive statutory bans on cultivated meat, utilizing legislation to actively protect their traditional agricultural heritage and rural economies. The timeline for widespread adoption will be dictated heavily by political protectionism and production economics. The most economically viable path to market relies on a strategic integration of diverse protein sources. This diagram outlines the hybrid food ecosystem. By blending highly flavorful cultivated animal cells with structured plant matrices, producers reduce costs while elevating the sensory profile. Simultaneously, precision microbial fermentation synthesizes functional proteins, operating seamlessly alongside both methods. This integrated approach allows high-tech bioreactor facilities to operate concurrently with lush crop farms, providing a critical tool to feed 10 billion people.